Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Today, Dan Gittler, who's a PM on the field service team, is going to talk about functional location and asset hierarchies. So, Dan, thanks for joining and please take it away.
Awesome. We built this feature based on a bunch of customer asks, and the idea behind it is how do I model out physical spaces, but not necessarily using the account entity. So first, let's just go through the scenarios and our personas. So on one persona, we're calling it the service manager. This is someone who needs to view and maintain a list of locations, or also known as sites, as well as a list of assets for different customers. So there's the need to configure that and view that and edit it. That's one persona. The other persona is a dispatcher slash customer care rep, the one who is intaking, whether it's a case or a work order, the one that the customer calls out and reaches out, says, here's my problem. And they need to identify with the customer the location of the problem to which the technician needs to be dispatched. And lastly, we actually have the field technician who, when they're out in the field, they want to quickly understand, okay, where's the asset I'm working on, or where's the location I'm working on, and go from there. So let's get into the demo. First thing I want to show over here is we have a new entity. It's called functional locations. If I click on it, I'll see a list of all of my functional locations, and I'll quickly go ahead and I'll find the one I want to demo. So here we have the top of the tree, which is Bellows College Campus. If I open this up, I see basic information about the name. What I'll also see over here is an address, right? This is really key, and latitude and longitude as well. If I jump in over here to the assets and locations tab, this is where we ship the new control that lets me visualize the hierarchy of the locations so that I can understand, okay, the top of this location tree is the campus. Then I have building A, B, and C. I also have a cafeteria that is called the Bellows Eastern Cafeteria, as well as 2 parking lots. If I expand this level, I'm building A, I can see there's 2 staircases. There's the roof, floor 2, 3, 4, 5. If I expand floor 2, I have 2 conference rooms. So you can see that you can build this out many levels deep, or keep it simple and keep it at a top level. That's really up to you in terms of how detailed you need to build out your location tree. So I built out this tree. Let's focus a couple of functions around the tree itself that you can accomplish. So first of all, sometimes based on your spelling, because we'll do this alphabetically, you may end up in a situation where, let's say, you want, building a roof, let's say, was showing up right over here. So what I can see over here is that if at any point things get out of order, so here you can see building a roof, which is in between 4 and 5, and I want it to be below it, I can always take it, I can drop it just below, and now it reorders it so that moving forward, I can see things in the order I want that make the most sense. What I can also do is, if I either accidentally do something or I want to reorder things after the fact, I can also reparent any of these levels. So let's just say that I wanted building a roof to be its own node, right? I can take this and drag it under Bellows College Campus right here. And now building a roof is at the same level as building A, B, and C. Or if I want to drag it back again, I can say, make this a child of building A. And every time I do this, what it's doing is it's updating the parent location of that functional location. So that's how the tree knows to represent it in this parent-child relationship. So those are 2 things around reordering, as well as in terms of reparenting. The way I can build this out as well is, if I wanted to, let's say, in building B, I want to now add floor 5. I can also add additional records. So I can go to this node here, and I can do this from floor 2 if I wanted to add a new room, or here if I wanted to add a new floor. And I can say, let me add a new location. And I'll click it. It shows up nicely inline, and I'll call this floor 5, save and close. And now floor 5 shows up right over here. So it's super easy to add additional records if I wanted to, just by clicking the ellipsis and clicking new location. And of course, like we talked about, reordering and dragging it under another node to become a parent. If I already had a location that somehow is in the wrong place, I can also just go ahead and add an existing location as well if I wanted to, and it lets me pick from a list of locations in my database. All of these locations, you have the ability to link them to specific accounts. The reason this matters is twofold. If I opened up an account and I want to see all the locations that are associated to that account, that's important. But also what you'll see later is when we're creating work orders and I want to have smart filtering that only shows me locations if it's linked to my account. This way I'm not just seeing a huge list of locations. It matters in that case as well. So what we have is a many-to-many relationship between locations and accounts. So if I click on related, I'll see accounts over here. and I'll see that I've pre-related this to 2 different accounts. The idea behind this is that if it's a residential situation, you're probably not going to use this. But if you're dealing with a campus, you may have accounts with many different parties that may be the ones responsible for different types of work orders, right? There might be one account that's responsible for calling you for servicing any sort of plumbing issue, and another one that could be construction, and another one that can be cleanup. You may offer all sorts of services, and different accounts are going to call you about them. But at the end of the day, all of that's the same campus location structure. So it's important for us to make sure you don't have to rebuild this location structure for every single account. And that's why we give you the ability to relate multiple different accounts to the same location structure. Another good example of that is, let's say you're doing work for an ongoing construction site. Sometimes you may be the subcontractor for the general contractor. Maybe one of the subcontractors working on the site might call you, or maybe the actual owner of the property might call you directly, and all of your work orders need to be related to those respective service accounts. So we wanted to give you that flexibility to have many different accounts that are linked to this location structure. And so now if I went to that account page, just like we have the location tab on the location entity, if I opened up Bellows Global Facilities and Security, and I went to the Assets and Locations tab, now I'm going to have that same tree, except the top of the tree shows my account name, and then I can see my location structure just below it. And same thing if I went to the other account. So let's go into the next set of capabilities here around using the same tree for assets. So if I jump in over here and I can see this checkbox that says Show Assets, and if I do that, the assets are going to show up in this location tree as well, under the respective location. So if I open building A and I expand the roof, I can see that I have a chiller. The chiller has a subcomponent, which is a compressor. There's also a purification system and a water pump as well. In the same way that I can reparent locations, if I wanted to say, okay, this water pump is now located in, let's just say, on the roof of building B, I take that water pump, I can just move it to building B, and then that asset now has a new parent location, which is now underneath building B. I can do that as well with an asset that has child components. The thing that we do restrict from the UI now, though, is I can't move a child component of an asset out from underneath its parent. So I can't take the compressor and move it somewhere else, but I could take the chiller, which automatically drags all its sub nodes together with it at the same time. So that gives me a really easy way to manage my assets if they're moving around and so on and so forth. The last thing worth mentioning over here is that right now I'm on this location page, so everything's in the context of locations. But if I went ahead and I went to the account page, I can also add assets directly linked to the account. They would show up as well. So let's say there's another subcomponent for AC chiller. I can just say new asset. I can say that this is a condenser. I can click save and close, and it would show up basically underneath that condenser right over there. And if I did the same thing over here and I said, well, let me add it to the location, you get the idea. You see how that can work. So we showed before how this shows up on the locations page. Again, on the account page, it would show up, but it would only show you the assets if the assets parent account is related to the account page I'm on. If I go to the asset page itself, so I can just double click over here to open the asset page. I also have the assets and locations tab right over here. And it opens it up in context of that asset. So you could see that it's highlighted and focused, but we wanted to make sure that if you wanted to see surrounding information, what other assets are there? Where is this located? We really wanted to make sure you don't have to start clicking around. So although we open it and we expand the asset that you selected in that form, we're still showing all of its sibling assets. We're showing the location it's in and the entire picture without having to navigate away. So the next step I'm going to do is go take you through the work order process. So let's go ahead and let's click on work order. Let's create a new work order. And I'll click my account over here. Bellows Global Facilities and Security. And now there's a couple of paths I can take here. So one path is, this is a fixed asset. It's an AC unit. It's not moving around at all. So you can reorder this form, of course, using typical configuration capabilities to put these fields in whatever order you want. But the key I wanted to show here is that if I choose an asset over here, such as the chiller, it will automatically default the location if that asset has a parent location. So in the situation where it's a static fixed asset, it doesn't move, you've associated to a location, great. I just pick the asset, the rest is good to go from there. If that's not my flow, or if I'm not using asset in any way, shape, or form, I can jump in over here to the location dropdown. I can see over here all of the locations that are linked to Bellows Global Facility. So that makes it really easy for me to quickly view, scroll, search, and find only those relevant locations. If for whatever reason I haven't related my locations to my account, right? Maybe it's a brand new account. Maybe I just haven't gone through that exercise. Maybe there's a data cleanup I need to do. We didn't want to block you from being able to choose any location, even if it's not related to that account yet. So while by default, we're going to filter it for you, I can always go ahead and I can say, instead of saying, show me all the locations by account, I can say, just show me all my locations. And if I click this, then all the locations will be optional to search and pick from, not only the ones for this particular account. So before I pick that location, I also wanted to point out that right now you can see the default address comes from the top level, which is One Microsoft Way. But if I jump back in over here and I select the building A, because location has an address and that's more specific than your general account, then the address over here updates and says 3007 156th Street, etc. Okay, so now that we've seen the address defaulting functionality, one of the last steps here is once I pick my location, so if this is the order I'm going in, then my assets over here can actually get filtered down to show me only the assets in that location. So right over here, I can see, well, there are no assets in that location. However, if I chose specifically the roof, because we have an asset at that location and I jump down here, it's going to show me and filter only the assets at that location. Now, in a lot of cases where you have kind of like some mobile asset or something that's not fixed, or maybe you haven't related the asset to the location, what you can still do is I pick my location, even if there are no assets here in that location, all I do is I click change view. I uncheck this box that says filter by related location, and you can also change that default behavior by customizing the form, jump back in here, and then I would see any assets at all, even if it's not part of that particular location. So just recapping scenario-wise with what it enables, I used to just be able to click an account that would represent my address, my location, and the account calling. Now, regardless of the account I pick, I can optionally set a location, which drives my address functionality and ultimately also helps with filtering down my assets. But I can also go ahead and just pick my asset, which defaults to location as well. But let's even go through the scenario now where I don't even have an asset at all, right? The scenario we talked about before about a janitorial company or an inspection, which is just go ahead and inspect my facility where it's not specific to an asset. This asset's not required at all. I can still use this and just say, here's my account, here's my location, and I'm going to go out there to do inspection type A. I would then go ahead and click save, and you're totally good. So this whole feature can be used with assets or without assets, just the same, and it opens up a lot of capabilities. All right, let's go ahead and actually save this, and let's see what happens. So we'll enter my asset. So I have my account, I have my location, I have my asset. Let me just fill in a couple other key pieces of information over here. And I will click save. Now, when I click save, just like we do with incident type in the schema today, we create what's called a work order incident, which basically is the record that's summarizing the incident type and the asset. Now, what you're going to see now, if I go under my incidents, is this work order incident has the incident type. It also now has the location, and it also has the asset under the hood. It's just not in the view. So you can see if I open this up over here, then I can see that it relates to a specific asset. So the point is over there that we made it so that your incident carries the location as well. Now, what does that open up other than consistency? It gives me the schema and the model that lets me have multiple different work order incidents for different locations. So if I wanted to, I can now on the same work order say, here's another incident, and this is for AC not working. And over here, I can say, here's my asset and here's my location. So in the same way that you can do that for multiple assets with incident types and a work order, location gets into the mix as well. I do. So we wanted to make sure that we can tie this in from all of our key entry points that we ship out of the box for work orders. So we're also lighting this up on the case entity if you're the type of customer that starts out with a case and then converts it to a work order. So when I come over here to cases and I click new case, I'll just give my case a title. I'll pick my customer over here. And on the field service tab, we've added the incident type as well as the location over here as well. So if you fill in those values at the point that I actually save it, if I were to click the button, either I can run through my business process flow, or I might click the button that says convert to work order. The location will be carried over from case as well. The last entry point that we wanted to make sure we ship is on service agreements. So you'll see over here, if I have an agreement and I jump into my agreement booking setup over here, and this is where I define, okay, I want to go out quarterly or to do the following incident types. Then on my agreement booking setup, all of my incidents that I add, I also have the ability to add location. So here's my agreement booking incident. We have incident type. Now we have functional location as well. Asset, which has always been there. And when I actually go ahead and this work order's generated, it'll carry that location all the way down to the work order, set the address appropriately, so on and so forth. So I'll go into one more level of just kind of implementation detail. So what I want to just point out is that, right, we demoed before that when I created a new work order and I picked the location, we demoed before how the address gets defaulted to the work order. I want to just point out that it's not important to store your addresses at every single level. You store it when it's relevant to have a different address. So the point is, building A over here might have the address of 3007. Building B might have a different address over here. It might not be important for you to then go ahead and store an address of the roof and floor 2 and floor 3. That might be plenty descriptive enough. Maybe it's not important to have coordinates at that level. But when I create the work order, even if I choose floor 4, we'll recognize that the parent over here, building B, does have an address, and we'll take it from here, even if we didn't explicitly put an address on floor 4. If I jump back in one more second and I choose Bellows, then Bellows by default, the address is 1 Microsoft Way. At the point that I pick a location, right, even if I pick a location that doesn't have an address on that record, such as conference room 201, because one of the parents in that tree has a location, it overrides it and now sets it to 3007 156.